Not daring to give the beauty in yellow robes a moment to react, Fang Chen decisively crushed the black bell in his hand. A series of muffled poof, poof, bursting sounds rang out as the spatial storage device that had accumulated the lifetime essence of the big black dog was finally and completely released. An indescribable sky-blotting stench, like surging towering turbid waves, madly surged out in all directions. Aged excrement of various colors, sizes, and utterly bizarre shapes blanketed the entire void, raining down in overwhelming abundance. The sheer quantity and vast coverage were truly horrifying to behold. At a single glance, one could not see the end of this tide of feces. Especially within 1,000 zhang around Fang Chen, the void space was so completely filled with excrement, as if packed by a cesspool, that it was airtight. Even Fang Chen, who had been mentally prepared, was stunned speechless by the horrifying amount of aged feces, which made his scalp tingle. Just how many years of reserves had this damned dog accumulated? Almost at the same instant, Fang Chen himself was overwhelmed by the foul stench that shot up into the sky, feeling dizzy and seeing stars. The void ancient tree in his mind actually emitted an unprecedented, impatient rustle sound. When facing the defiling blood of that Tao slave before, the void ancient tree had not shown such urgency. This was not because of how harmful the feces were, but because the blatant insult was simply too strong. Ah, Fang Chen. A drawn-out, trembling, sharp voice pierced through the eardrums like a sharp blade. Fang Chen focused his gaze and saw that the beauty in yellow robes was already surrounded layer upon layer by the sky, filling feces. Her powerful aura of the Three Calamities realm instantly erupted, isolating the surging filth 3 zhang away, but the incident was ultimately too sudden, and some splatters of feces still sprayed onto her. Her 2 sleeves were already dotted with stains of purple and yellow. On her right shoulder, there conspicuously hung a lump of eye-catching yellow matter. Her long, slender legs were also irregularly splattered with several black blotches. The front of her clothing was likewise not spared. What was most unbearable was that even her waterfall, like hair, had been stained a little. And what completely drove her to madness was that her face had also been splattered with a single drop. Coupled with the pervasive foul stench that penetrated everywhere, for her who was always extremely fastidious, this was a nightmare more horrible than a nightmare. She screamed frantically, as if her body were on fire, hopping on the spot. She shouted hysterically, "I'm going to kill you. Kill you." As she screamed madly, she mobilized the supreme laws of heaven and earth, desperately scouring her body. In an instant, the yellow dress on her body was annihilated into dust by the power of the laws. She did not care at all if she was exposed, but continued to violently scrub every inch of her skin with the power of the laws. She would not tolerate a single speck of filth on her body. Under the scouring of the violent laws, her originally fair skin was actually scraped away a layer, faintly revealing horrifying red threads. Fang Chen watched with twitching mouth corners, thinking to himself, "This old woman truly cannot tolerate a bit of dirt." He chuckled and said loudly, "Old woman, enjoy this heaven and earth great excrement I've left for you. Farewell." As his words fell, he turned to flee. The beauty in yellow robes used all her strength to clean her body, finally slightly recovering from the extreme state of frenzy. But her beautiful face was still covered with thick anger. She casually grabbed a set of clothes and put them on, saying in a bone-chilling voice, "The void feather garment is still in my hands. Let's see where you can run. You dare use such despicable, filthy methods. I will not let you off." Her harsh words suddenly came to an abrupt halt. Because not far away, Fang Chen casually waved his hand and produced another brand. New void feather garment, unhurriedly draping it over himself. Then he waved his hand without looking back, laughing. "You can keep that old one as a souvenir. Thanks for your time, sword. We'll meet again someday. Oh no, make that we'll never meet again." As he spoke, he had already retracted the heaven, burying sacred beast. The moment the sacred beast's pressure vanished, he decisively initiated a teleportation, ready to flee. "I forbid you to leave." The beauty in yellow robes' apricot eyes instantly widened, and she let out a shriek, about to charge forward. However, all around her was the dense, sky-covering excrement, making her not dare to force her way through. Damn it! Her entire body erupted with destructive law power, and that terrifying force instantly condensed into a law giant, sword 10,000 zhang long, fiercely slashing forward. In an instant, the sword light cut through the endless dead void, and the supreme radiance illuminated the 9 heavens. Amidst the mad quaking of the entire void, a longsword scar spreading to the end of the void split this realm in 2 by force. The sky-blotting excrement ahead was blasted apart by this force in one go. With a face full of coldness, the beauty in yellow robes stepped on the peerless sword light and pursued. But when she rushed out, how could she see even a trace of Fang Chen? The beauty in yellow robes was so angry her whole body trembled, grinding her teeth and saying, "No wonder you little brat willingly handed over the void feather garment, so you sent ill had another one." Thinking back, she realized she had foolishly thought this champion marquis was too honest, even proactively gifting him a time sword. Her chest heaved violently again as she gritted her silver teeth and cursed, "Bastard. If I let you escape, then my name, Jian Sanquang, will be written in reverse from now on. You think with the void feather garment, you're absolutely safe. Naive." She suddenly lifted a finger and pointed at her smooth forehead. A bloody red arc of light burst forth, quickly condensing into 3 eerie seals. "Little brat, you've forced me to tear open the seals. You're dead." She raised her hand and tore off the first seal. In that instant, a strange faint red appeared in her originally clear black and white eyes, and her aura suddenly became extremely manic. "Emerge." With a sweep of her hand, over 90 supreme, grade spirit swords flew out from the sword sheaths behind her, arrayed on either side of her body. Every spirit sword emitted the same faint red aura as in her eyes, and these auras connected all 90, plus swords together like threads, forming a perfect whole. Immediately, the positions of the sword formation shifted rapidly, actually condensing into a pair of wings. A pair of giant wings condensed entirely from supreme spirit swords. It was a clang of ear-piercing metallic wing vibrations. The sword formation wings flapped fiercely, emitting an incomparably sharp, deafening sword cry. The beauty in yellow robes' pretty face was filled with killing intent as she coldly uttered, "The game of cat and mouse has only just begun." The next moment, with a thunderous boom, the sword-shaped wings teleported away from the spot amidst fierce sword cries, disappearing on the spot. Having already fled far away, Fang Chen now couldn't help but joyfully bring out the time sword. Feeling the powerful spiritual pressure from the sword, he smiled and muttered to himself, "Purple lightning and blue frost are still being nurtured within the world embryo, and my Grand Yan sword formation just happens to be missing 2 main swords. If I could snatch another one from that woman, how great that would be." Thinking of the 90, plus spirit swords in the beauty in yellow robes' hands, Fang Chen felt a surge of envy. However, even if you gave him another chance to face that beauty in yellow robes, he absolutely dared not. That woman was probably now chasing after him in a furious rage. Thinking of this, he hurriedly washed the sword body with spiritual water, cleansing away all traces of aura to reduce the chance of being tracked. Then he raised his hand and summoned the big black dog again. As soon as the big black dog appeared, it urgently looked around, discovering that they had actually escaped the beauty in yellow robes, and couldn't help but ask in great surprise, "Master, you escaped. How on earth did you escape?" A trace of guilt flashed across Fang Chen's face, and he coughed dryly. "I have plenty of tricks. What's so surprising about escaping?" The big black dog thought it over, indeed. One couldn't vouch for this master in other respects. But when it came to tricks, he had one after another, each completely different. It said with a relieved sigh, "Truly incredible, Master, you actually managed to escape from her hands. If I'm not mistaken, this old woman is none other than one of the renowned 7 swords, Jian Sanquang. She once caused a huge disturbance in the divine capital, suppressing and killing 3 Calamity's realm experts, and then fought her way out alive. An utterly ruthless woman beyond compare." Gulp. Fang Chen gulped hard. No way, that woman who looked so fastidious could be this vicious. Thinking of how he had drenched her in aged feces, he felt another wave of guilt and hastily asked, "This woman, she wouldn't hold a grudge, would she?" The big black dog lifted a paw and stroked its chin, musing, after all, she is a titan of the 3 Calamities realm. Ordinary grudges naturally don't weigh on her mind. Fang Chen felt even guiltier and pressed. What about grudges that are not ordinary? The big black dog said confidently, then it would only be repeating what happened in the divine capital. According to rumors, back then she flew into a rage and stormed straight into the divine capital for revenge. Fang Chen immediately felt a slight darkness before his eyes. Even a supreme place like the divine capital couldn't stop her vengeful steps. "I just splashed a bit of dung. That shouldn't count as some deep-seated hatred, right?" As he was pondering thus, the third eye on the big black dog's forehead suddenly snapped open. It trembled and cried out in terror, "Not good. This is an omen of great calamity." Fang Chen's heart thumped. He said gravely, "Quick, sniff it out. Has Jian Sanquang caught up?" The big black dog froze for a moment, then hurriedly inhaled the world's energy deeply. A moment later, its canine eyes snapped open, all three bulging round and wide as it howled. It really is her. She's coming. And her speed is absurdly fast, far faster than us. She's most likely entered a berserk state. This state takes an enormous toll on her. She only uses it when facing an unstoppable foe. Master, what on earth did you do to her that she would pursue you so relentlessly? Fang Chen's mouth corners twitched madly. This time the grudge has become truly massive. Now they could neither outrun nor outfight her. What to do? Suddenly, Fang Chen recalled something and hastily took out the Law Jade talisman his godmother had crafted for him before she left. His godmother had once said that when in danger, this talisman could reflect a mirror image identical to oneself to confront the enemy. Facing a ruthless woman like Giant Sangquang, even 10 more copies of himself would be no match. However, this mirror image could lead her away. Without hesitation, Fang Chen crushed the talisman. A burst of exquisite law power surged forth, instantly coalescing into a mirror as tall as a person, reflecting Fang Chen back at himself. Within the mirror, a figure of equal height and appearance to Fang Chen immediately emerged. Then the law power dissipated, the mirror shattered, and that figure remained there, fully alive. Its visage, form, and aura were completely identical to Fang Chen's. Even the realm it emanated was exactly the same. Even more miraculously, Fang Chen found his thoughts linked with this mirror image. He could even, through the other's mind, directly discern the true function of this law. This law could reflect a projection with 70% of a sage's power. Below the sage realm, it could perfectly replicate 100% combat strength, fully cooperate with the self in battle. But its fatal flaw was extreme fragility. The mirror body was so frail that a single strike would cause it to completely collapse. With this mirror image law, it is enough. Fang Chen's eyes lit up, and he immediately took out a void feather garment, personally draping it over the mirror image. After infusing it with ample saintly power, he ordered the mirror image to race toward a predetermined direction. At a faint sound of tearing space, the feathered garment fluttered its wings and glided away. The mirror body silently merged into the distant void horizon. Fang Chen decisively executed the selfless dust purification art, abruptly turned with the big black dog, and sprinted with all his might in the exact opposite direction. But unexpectedly, before long, the world between heaven and earth suddenly erupted with a tremendous sword hum, shaking so violently it made one's eardrums ache. The yellow-robed beautiful woman, her eyes slightly reddened, descended with surging force of void power. Her terrifying sword energy swept like a tidal wave, pulverizing the surrounding dust into fine powder. With a frosty expression, she coldly scanned the two diverging directions, a deep flicker of suspicion passing through her eyes. After a moment's deliberation, the beautiful woman reached back and tore a top-grade spirit sword from the wing of swords beside her, then pressed 2 fingers together and harshly wiped them along the blade. A fearsome law power of the Three Calamities realm was forcefully poured into it, causing the entire sword to emit terrifying rippling light capable of tearing the void. Go! The yellow-robed woman flicked her finger. The longsword let out an explosive roar and shot through the void in pursuit toward the direction the mirror image had vanished. She locked her gaze fiercely on the mirror image. The sword wings on her back trembled violently, and her entire being transformed into a streak of light, speeding away. Roughly half a shichen later, above a ruined continent, she finally succeeded in intercepting that figure. Staring at the harmless face before her, the yellow-robed woman clenched her teeth in fury and spoke coldly. "I kindly brought you back to the weapon vault, and you repay me with such filthy methods." Fang Chen shrank his neck, his face full of embarrassment, and said, "Senior, please hear my explanation. I was in a rush to save someone in a certain place." He paused, his voice dropping a few tones, "Only because I feared you wouldn't let me go, and that you were constantly on guard against my escape. I truly had no choice but to resort to this desperate measure." Unexpectedly, before he could finish, the yellow-robed woman closed in like a ghost and grabbed his throat. Furious to the extreme, the yellow-robed woman laughed, her laughter brimming with coldness. "Now you want to explain." Recalling the image of herself drenched in feces, she broke out in goosebumps all over and ground her teeth. "Didn't you like splashing dung? Splash it then, why stop? Didn't you have plenty of void feather garments? Take out another one. Didn't you like my sword? Go on, take it, you dog." The more she thought, the angrier she got, the more she hated. She clenched her fist and fiercely aimed it at that clean, delicate-looking face. "Bastard, I'm definitely going to give you a proper welcome today." "Wait." Her fist abruptly halted just before smashing that face. Her gaze narrowed slightly, acutely sensing something amiss. "Wrong, you are not Fang Chen himself. Your left and right are reversed." She finally realized that the heartbeat of the person before her was actually on the right side. Focusing deeper to scrutinize his interior, the positions of his organs were also completely mirrored from left to right. The mirror image, seeing it had been exposed, simply stopped pretending, darkened its face, and said coldly, "Old woman, I already explained, but you wouldn't listen. You deserved get splashed with dung. If you dare chase me again, I'll splash you again." With that, the mirror image Fang Chen's body suddenly cracked apart on its own, like a vase covered with fissures. Under the yellow-robed woman's stunned gaze, it completely shattered, turning into glittering shards of mirror light and vanishing. The yellow-robed woman's hand remained frozen in midair. After a long while, her fingers gradually clenched, her silver teeth grinding audibly. Her slender, fragrant shoulders trembled uncontrollably, and from her throat came a long, chilling, hair-raising sneer. "Do think, fooled again. Champion Marquis, you're finished, I, Huangshan, swear it." In a forbidden ground like the divine capital, she had fought her way in and out 7 times, yet never did she imagine she would be fooled repeatedly by a mere deity transformation cultivator. At this moment, she completely lost her composure. Those beautiful eyes spitting biting cold light, she shot her gaze fiercely toward the direction Fang Chen's real body had fled. With a violent vibration of the sword wings behind her, her entire form instantly vanished from the spot. Elsewhere, Fang Chen retracted his divine sense, his expression darkening slightly. Through their mental link, he had clearly seen everything the mirror image had experienced. That giant Sanquang's strength was even more terrifying than the big black dog had described. That oppressive might, akin to heavenly wrath, far surpassed the great dream demon monarch, the 9 suns giant emperor, and the 9 hells Asura emperor, almost catching up to the realm of the chaotic ancient blood, Marquis. Even worse, the other party still refused to give up. As he pondered, the eye on the big black dog's forehead throbbed violently. It turned its head to look behind, its eyelids twitching wildly, and cried out in terror, "My goodness. Something terrifying is coming this way." Fang Chen suddenly felt as if needles were prickling his back, as if some terrifying entity had locked onto him. His heart pounded uncontrollably. Could it be the attack of that old woman? If the attack truly locked onto him, the old woman would be able to track his location. Dealing with the techniques of a 3 calamities expert is truly extremely troublesome. As he racked his brains for a countermeasure, a piercing gaze shot through the void not far away. Fang Chen looked over in shock, and finally saw that a bright star was hanging not far from them. That was a world of living beings. Clearly, as he and the big black dog passed by this place, they attracted the attention of the sages of this realm, who then came to investigate in the void. However, the sages' gazes were almost entirely focused on the big black dog. After all, the big black dog was a 2 calamities existence, while Fang Chen, a mere deity transformation cultivator, was completely ignored by them. At this sight, Fang Chen's eyes lit up sharply, and he said in a deep voice, "Go, enter that living world. Once we're inside, that old woman won't be able to touch us." If they were pursued in the void, he was absolutely no match for the yellow-robed beauty. But once they entered a world protected by its own laws, the yellow-robed beauty would be powerless and could only glare helplessly. The big black dog's eyes rolled around, instantly understanding Fang Chen's intention. Without hesitation, it followed Fang Chen as they teleported to the world barrier, opening its massive mouth and biting fiercely at the barrier. This rough action naturally drew furious shouts from the sages of this realm. 4 2 calamities sages surged forward simultaneously, all shouting angrily as they moved to stop them. But the fierce, lethal attack from behind was already at their doorstep. There was no time to delay. At this critical moment, the big black dog suddenly opened its mouth and bellowed, "His Majesty, the Emperor of Southern Qian, is present here. How dare you obstruct us?" Southern Qian, His Majesty. The 4 2 calamities sages looked at each other, seeing a flash of horrified doubt in each other's eyes. How could the Emperor of the Southern Qian realm possibly descend to such a small world as theirs? Just as they hesitated, a flash of golden light shone from the big black dog's chest, and a small token containing a trace of the great Qian divine kingdom's might floated out. On the front of the token were carved 4 bold characters, "Protect a hound, loyal hound Zhan Tian," and on the reverse was a seal of ancient and profound mystery. On the seal were 8 extremely blurred characters, and just a single glance caused one's eyes to ache sharply. The 4 sages' faces instantly changed dramatically as they cried out in alarm. The Great Qian Imperial Jade Seal. Guardian Hound of the State, it truly is His Majesty's spirit beast, Zhan Tian. In that instant, the void behind the big black dog roared violently, and it was so agitated that all its fur stood on end. It had no desire to perish here along with Fang Chen. It fiercely bit open the world barrier, while the several sages hesitated, uncertain whether to continue blocking, until a soothing and gentle female voice came from within the world, refreshing the heart and mind. His Majesty, the Emperor of Southern Qian, has arrived, making our dustless realm shine with reflected glory. As her voice fell, the world barrier parted to both sides of its own accord, and a sky-reaching staircase paved with clouds and rosy mists extended straight to the big black dog's presence. The 4 Two-Calamity sages dared not show any further negligence, hurriedly stepping aside with deference, their expressions filled with reverence. After a slight hesitation, hearing the world, destroying commotion behind it drawing near, the big black dog quickly set its 4 paws into motion, charging up the cloud ladder and into the dustless realm. The moment its front paw stepped in, a longsword of cerulean blue, wreathed with terrifying force of annihilation, tore through heaven and earth and came piercing forward. The sturdy world barrier of the dustless realm was as if made of paper before it, instantly and violently pierced through. Fang Chen immediately felt a tearing, excruciating pain throughout his body, a coldness of death spreading instantly through his limbs, causing them to stiffen. His heart pounded even more uncontrollably. He was secretly alarmed. The power of this strike already had the shadow of Luanguzu, whose cross, realm spear, which even an ordinary 3 Calamities expert might not be able to receive head-on. At the critical moment, Fang Chen bit the tip of his tongue fiercely, using the sharp pain to forcefully break free from the stiffness. Then, without a second thought, he activated the artifact he had prepared in his sleeve, the heart of 10,000 Earths. With a whoosh, his body vanished from the spot into thin air. Almost at the very moment he disappeared, the deadly longsword pierced through the spot where he had just been. Having missed, the longsword, as if possessing a spirit, locked onto Fang Chen's aura again and suddenly turned around to thrust at him. Fang Chen, holding the heart of 10,000 Earths, his body having just turned into clay and slowly taking shape, felt a prickling, stabbing pain abruptly attack from behind. He turned his head to look and couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. His back was already riddled with countless holes covered in fine sword punctures. This was only because he had fled fast enough. If he had been a fraction slower, he would probably have been instantly beheaded. The big black dog likewise did not escape unscathed. At this moment, its dog rear was stabbed into a bloody, mangled honeycomb, blood streaming ceaselessly. Yai-po! In agony, the big black dog rolled on the ground, clutching its rear tightly with its 2 hind legs, and started cursing profusely. The big black dog bared its teeth, viciously waving its 2 front paws in obscene gestures. "Damn woman, don't you ever fall into Lord Dog's hands. Otherwise, I'll do this to you, and that, and then this." Fang Chen furrowed his brow and deployed his second domain, attempting to heal both of them. But the wounds contained a force of law. No matter how the domain operated, it proved ineffective. Anger flared in his heart, and he couldn't help but curse under his breath. Damn woman, so ruthless. However, what concerned Fang Chen more at the moment was the big black dog's unrestrained shouting just now. He frowned at the black dog and asked in a deep voice, "Dead dog, you opened your mouth and called me His Majesty, the Emperor of Southern Qian. Aren't you afraid of causing enormous trouble?" Fang Chen was uneasy. God knows how the experts of the Dustless Realm view this Southern Qian Emperor. And he didn't know what terrifying consequences would ensue if his impersonation failed. The big black dog curled its lip and replied nonchalantly, "What's to be afraid of? The Dustless Realm has long wanted to throw itself into the embrace of our Southern Qian." Fang Chen was surprised upon hearing this. The big black dog shook its head, speaking as if it were nothing unusual. "The dark tide is coming soon. The beings of small and medium worlds, if they don't submit to a great world, will surely die." Fang Chen fell into thought. He remembered that the Northern Snow Empress had also mentioned this matter. For small and medium worlds to survive the dark tide, there is one method: gather enough world embryos. And now it seemed that Southern Qian had opened another brand, new door for these small and medium worlds, accepting their beings. Fang Chen couldn't help but feel tempted. Without a 3 Calamities expert to preside over them, gathering enough world embryos was nearly impossible. He steadied himself and pressed. Your Southern Qian wouldn't be sheltering all the beings of small and medium worlds for no reason, would it? How could there be such a cheap deal in the world? Among the countless worlds and realms, none runs a charity. The big black dog said matter, of factly of course. Even as vast as Southern Qian is, it cannot accommodate all beings from dozens of small and medium worlds. We only accept experts at deity transformation and above. As it spoke, its 3 eyes rolled around and it coaxed, Master. You could also lead Zhangtu to come to Southern Qian. I'll put in a good word for you, make an exception for Zhangtu, and even allow those at the nascent Soul Realm to relocate together." Fang Chen calmed the turmoil in his heart, slowly shook his head, and said with firm resolve, "No need. If I must sacrifice the lives of Zhangtu's people to secure my own survival, then what were our 3 great battles in Zhang you fought for? For what have countless generations fought and sacrificed over these 10,000 years?" The big black dog fell silent immediately. Its 3 eyes stared at Fang Chen somewhat dumbfounded, and it murmured to itself in its heart, "This fellow may be cunning and detestable, but when it comes to the beings of Zhan GTU, there's truly nothing to criticize. Fine, once I break free, I'll spare his little life." At that very moment, a piercingly sharp ripping sound Chila rang out, and heaven and earth shook violently. A void fissure rapidly spread, tearing through the sky and striking straight towards Fang Chen. Fang Chen merely cast a light glance at it, unhurriedly activating the heart of 10,000 Earths. In the next instant, he had already appeared at the other end of the Dustless Realm. Within a single world, even a sage of the 3 Calamities realm could do nothing to him, let alone a mere sword. Fang Chen calmly surveyed this dustless realm, only then realizing with surprise that this world, after suffering the invasion of ancient dark creatures, had been preserved remarkably intact. The mountains and rivers were magnificent, the human realm unharmed. In every place that appeared in succession, there was not the slightest trace of destruction caused by the ancient dark creatures. He had assumed it was mere coincidence that the 2 places he passed had not suffered their descent, yet during the several teleports while evading that longsword, every place he visited proved to be the same. The big black dog also saw the abnormality. This dustless realm is really something. Could it have repelled the invasion of the ancient giants all by itself, just like your Middle-earth? Fang Chen's heart jolted. This neighboring world, only a few days' journey from Middle-earth, was also so formidable. Middle-earth could repel the ancient giants on its own, because countless people sacrificed their lives for righteousness. Could it be that many similar figures had also emerged in the dustless realm? With these thoughts, before the longsword attacked again, he activated the heart of myriad Earths once more. Relying on the unique sense of listening to the world's heartbeat, he began to probe the entire dustless realm. Suddenly, he made an unexpected discovery. In the far north of this world, there was a circular region that emitted no heartbeat at all. By all logic, mountains, rivers, plants, and trees each have their own heartbeat. Even if that region lacked living beings, there should still be things like rocks and earth. Fang Chen's gaze flickered faintly, and he teleported towards the closest heartbeat to that circular region. The next moment, he condensed into form from the earth and found himself standing in a world of ice and snow. A wild wind howled, and snow filled the sky. Waves of an extreme bone, piercing cold that even a divine transformation cultivator would find unbearable spread in from all directions. This could be considered one of this world's forbidden zones. Even more bizarrely, while this place was filled with drifting snow and void of life, just across an ice valley ahead lay an endlessly vast blessed land. There, the spiritual energy was so abundant it rivaled the southern heaven realm, and all manner of heaven, in dearth spiritual treasures grew freely. Most peculiar of all, amidst the sea of clouds, one could faintly see the phantom of a colossal warship that stretched up to the firmament and down to the very ground. At first, Fang Chen thought it was just an ordinary large vessel, but when his divine sense swept over it, he sucked in a cold breath. This ship, seemingly right before his eyes, is actually tens of thousands of miles away. The big black dog also noticed the anomaly and could not help but widen its 3 dog eyes, blurting out, "Wait, just how big is this ship?" Fang Chen secretly clicked his tongue. Even from tens of thousands of miles away, one could still see such a vast silhouette. If viewed up close, wouldn't it be impossible to see its end? He silently estimated in his heart the area of this ship was probably no smaller than the continent of Taking Great State. If packed tightly, it could hold all the people of Middle-earth. The big black dog's 3 eyes shone brightly. A ship like this is probably even rarer than a realm artifact. What a great treasure. Its 2 dog legs kicked fiercely, about to leap over the ice valley. However, just as it was about to jump, an invisible ripple suddenly spread out before it, silently pressing its body back down. At the same time, a warm and pleasant woman's laughter drifted over leisurely. "Your Majesty, Sage of War Heaven, you've made this humble one search far and wide." At the center of the ripple, a woman gradually materialized. She had bare jade-like feet, wore a 6-colored dress, and her rosy cape fluttered in the wind, an ethereal air pervading her entire being. She possessed the oval face of a classical beauty, her skin fair and flawless, her features as exquisite as a painting, and the corners of her mouth slightly upturned, giving off a gentle and tender aura. Yet the aura she emanated was demonic Kai. What puzzled Fang Chen even more was that, for some unknown reason, the appearance of this woman before him felt inexplicably familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere before. The big black dog was on full alert and said in a deep voice, "You must be the clear spirit great sage of the Dustless Realm, correct?" Fang Chen's pupils sharply contracted. The one who had just allowed them entry was this very woman, a great sage of the Three Calamities realm. The clear spirit great sage descended, bent her knees in a formal curtsy, her demeanor soft and beautiful, her voice gentle and pleasant. "Greetings, your majesty. Greetings, sage of war heaven." After speaking, she stood firmly in place, motionless. The big black dog shrugged its dog legs and shot Fang Chen a meaningful look, signaling him to speak. Fang Chen subconsciously raised his hand in a gesture of support and said, "Rise, you may stand." Only then did the clear spirit great sage rise, her rippling gaze settling on Fang Chen as she said softly, "Thank you, your majesty. I have long heard that your majesty's heroic bearing and unparalleled spirit dominate all heavens. Now that I see you in person, the reputation is truly deserved." Fang Chen's face showed no blush nor a skipped heartbeat. He was about to reply, "Clear spirit great sage, you flatter me." But behind him, heaven and earth shook violently once more. That persistent longsword attacked again. However, after Fang Chen had led the sword on a chase several times, its momentum had greatly diminished, no longer possessing its initial might. According to Fang Chen's plan, just a few more chases and the sword would be completely exhausted, at which point it could be successfully captured. The clear spirit great sage cast her gaze, seemingly respectful, and inquired, "Your majesty, would you have this humble one assist in capturing the sword?" Fang Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. If this woman truly wished to capture the sword, she would have acted long ago. Why wait until now? She simply wanted to see his abilities, or rather, she was doubting his identity as the Emperor of Southern Qian. After all, as the Emperor of the Four Great Worlds, his cultivation was only at the divine transformation stage, which was indeed hard to believe. Fang Chen's thoughts raced, and he secretly probed the immortal king imperishable bell that was being nourished within the heavenly Thunder Stone. The artifact spirit had once said that fully repairing this bell would take a month. Now, after 10 days of nourishment, even if not fully restored, it should already possess a certain defensive capability. Using it to suppress a supreme, grade spirit sword whose power had greatly waned should pose no problem. He fixed his gaze and saw that, indeed, the great bell had already largely recovered its form, with only shallow cracks remaining on its surface. With another 20 odd days of nourishment, it would completely return to its peak state. Fang Chen's heart settled, and turning to the clear spirit great sage, he said indifferently, "A mere sword, I, the Emperor, am more than enough." As soon as the words left his mouth, he immediately summoned the immortal king imperishable bell, and with a casual point of his finger, commanded, "Go." The snow-white immortal king imperishable bell spun rapidly, growing as it faced the wind, and in the blink of an eye transformed into the size of a small mountain, roaring as it rushed layer upon layer of void ahead, charging straight towards that longsword. With a deafening clang of metal that shook the surrounding wilderness, the longsword fiercely stabbed into the immortal king imperishable bell, stirring up visible ripples of belt-hole sound waves. The terrifying power of laws coiled around the blade was completely devoured and absorbed by the great bell like a giant whale inhaling water. Clearly, a highly intelligent artifact spirit resided within the longsword. Sensing the dire situation, it immediately let out a sharp, piercing screech, forcibly slashing open the world barrier in an attempt to flee into the void. However, as the immortal king imperishable bell tolled loudly, the rapid and grand sound waves roared like gods and demons, causing the entire longsword to tremble without cease. Its light rapidly dimming until with a clang it fell from the sky, firmly suppressed by the descending bell right where it was. Afterwards, the once tyrannical bell rapidly shrank to the size of a palm and obediently flew back into Fang Chen's hand. In Fang Chen's mind, the immortal king imperishable bell's artifact spirit immediately began to complain in its adorably fierce tone, "Making me work before I'm fully repaired. If I get back pain later, it'll all be your fault." Fang Chen's mouth couldn't help but twitch upward upon hearing this. The tone was such that one would think it had just finished its month of postpartum confinement. He immediately coaxed in his heart, all right, consider that I only used you this once. In the future, after 2 more uses, I'll let you go find your original master. Is that acceptable?" The artifact spirit, upon hearing this, became elated and responded cheerfully, "You still remember our agreement. You're really a good person. All right, consider this war trophy a gift to you." Before the words finished, the great bell shook violently, and the suppressed supreme, grade spirit sword was spat out with a clang. Fang Chen's hand was quick, snatching the spirit sword in his grasp. Then, with a thought, he recalled the immortal king imperishable bell. The big black dog watched with open dog eyes, inwardly shocked. Another realm artifact. Just how many good treasures does this guy have on him? In the beautiful eyes of great sage Kindling, a flash of undisguisable surprise flickered. She pursed her lips in a smile and said in a warm, gentle voice, "Your Majesty's divine might is truly formidable. The moment you act, you bring forth the immortal king's imperishable bell from the heavenly realm, a sight that broadens one's horizons indeed." Fang Chen waved his hand dismissively and said in a flat tone, "It delivered itself to me, so I reluctantly accepted it." Great Sage Kindling's gaze flickered, and without a change in expression, she began to calculate by pinching her fingers. With this calculation, a hint of surprise flashed in her eyes once again. She had thought this was just a boastful remark from Fang Chen. After all, what realm artifact would eagerly deliver itself? But after this deduction, she discovered that it was completely true. This immortal king's imperishable bell truly came offering itself on its own. What kind of heaven-defying luck must one possess to make a realm artifact voluntarily come to serve? Great Sage Kindling's attitude underwent a complete transformation at that moment. She cupped her hands respectfully and said, "This place is bitterly cold, truly not a good place to talk. Please, Your Majesty, follow this humble servant to the traveling palace for a discussion." Fang Chen raised his eyes to look at that absurdly huge giant ship. However, as Great Sage Kindling was unwilling to speak further here, he could only suppress his questions and follow her to the core area of the dust-free realm. This place was like the heavenly province of the Central Plains. Great sects stood in forests, blessed grotto. Heavens crisscrossed the land, and as far as the eye could see, experts were as numerous as clouds. In front of the traveling palace gates, more than 10 sages of the dust-free realm had already been waiting for quite some time. Seeing Great Sage Kindling leading Fang Chen's group back, everyone respectfully bowed and saluted. "Greetings, Your Majesty of Southern Qian." Fang Chen's gaze swept over them like lightning, and doubts sprouted thickly in his heart. In terms of the number of sages alone, the dust-free realm was not much more than the Central Plains. How had they repeatedly repelled the invasions of dark creatures? Furthermore, recalling that mysterious giant warship, the dust-free realm was probably far from being as simple as it appeared on the surface. Lying next to the Central Plains world was such a deeply hidden, eccentric neighbor, it was hard to tell whether it was a blessing or a curse. Suppressing the layers of doubt in his heart, Fang Chen calmly raised his hand and said, "Rise." The sages rose one after another, full of curiosity, gazing from up close upon the sacred countenance of the legendary emperor of Southern Qian. Just as everyone was filled with awe and reverence, a middle-aged female sage's pupils suddenly constricted. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but forcibly held it back. Fang Chen's perception was astonishing. He instantly caught the woman's odd behavior and couldn't help but examine her closely. She was a plain-looking middle-aged female demon sovereign. Judging from the aura she emitted, she seemed to be a demon clan member who had just entered the sage realm. Fang Chen grew even more puzzled. This woman's expression just now clearly showed she recognized him, but when had he ever become acquainted with a female demon sovereign? He simply looked at her and demanded directly, "Have you seen us before?" The middle-aged female demon sovereign averted her gaze and replied with her head lowered, "Reporting to Your Majesty, this humble one mistook you for someone else." "Is that so?" But her eyes just now definitely did not look like those of someone who had mistaken someone else. Could it be that he had some past grudge or entanglement with this female demon sovereign? It seemed that the dust-free realm was not a place to stay for long. If his false identity as the emperor were exposed, it would not be amusing at all. Great Sage Kindling gave the middle-aged female demon sovereign a lukewarm glance and softly rebuked, "Do not be disrespectful to His Majesty." Then she stepped aside and gestured, "Your Majesty, please enter the traveling palace for a discussion." Unexpectedly, just as the group arrived at the entrance of the traveling palace, the entire dust-free realm shook violently without any warning. An indescribable, terrifying pressure swept through the world as if a natural predator had descended. The entire canopy of heaven above them was like fragile glass, forcibly torn open by a brutal force into an endless pitch-black rift. A figure with wings formed from a million sword arrays, radiating boundless fury from her entire body, was suspended horizontally in the void, suffused with baleful aura, looking down upon the land. It was unmistakably the pursuing Jian Sangquang. At this moment, her pretty face was frosty, the sword wings at her sides had long lost their prior supreme power, and the sword arrays had become chaotic and disheveled. On her forehead, 2 blood-colored runes flickered in and out of sight. The third rune, which had been torn off earlier, was slowly reconstituting itself. Her activated berserk state was about to subside. Fortunately, she had finally caught up. From across an entire world, Giant Sanquang, utterly furious and flustered, shouted harshly, "You bastard, get the hell out here." The rebuke of this 3 Calamities Realm expert was like thunder from the highest heavens, shaking all directions. A 2 Calamities Realm expert couldn't help but change color slightly, and said in astonishment, "Have the people of the Martial Repository become so bold as to openly ambush the Emperor of Southern Qian?" At this moment, the middle-aged female demon sovereign's eyes flickered, and she wore a faint, ambiguous smile as she looked at Fang Chen and asked, "Your Majesty, why is that giant Sanquang from the Martial Repository hunting you down?" As soon as this question was raised, the sages present all detected a hint of something unusual. As a renowned powerhouse of the Martial Repository realm, Giant Sanquang's every word and deed could represent the entire Martial Repository. Openly ambushing the Emperor of Southern Qian, was that not tantamount to declaring war on the Southern Qian world? Although Giant Sanquang's name contained the character mad, her actions were never so reckless. On the contrary, in her normal state, without tearing open the seal, she could even be considered a rather amiable and gentle great sage. Great Sage Kingling also cast a questioning glance at Fang Chen, her eyes now layered with deep suspicion. The big black dog's heart thumped loudly at the sight. It had told Fang Chen to impersonate the Emperor of Southern Qian merely as a temporary expedient to evade Giant Sanquang's pursuit, without considering the long-term consequences. Now that Giant Sanquang had caught up for a face-to-face confrontation, the false Emperor's identity could no longer be concealed. Once the truth was exposed, Great Sage Kingling would certainly not do anything to it, a mere dog. But for Fang Chen, at worst, in a fit of rage, she might annihilate his body and soul completely. At best, she would at least expel him from the dust-free realm and hand him over to Giant Sanquang. Wait, this matter had nothing to do with it. It would be delighted if Fang Chen fell into that madwoman's hands. Just as it was secretly gloating, the big black dog suddenly felt a blazing fire burning its body, and the pain made it gasp sharply. It glanced sideways and saw Fang Chen glaring at it fiercely from the corner of his eye, having already secretly activated the Hell Soul Bell within his sleeve. "Dead dog, you keep leading me into the fire pit. If I die, you won't have a good time either." Fang Chen used the silent Zen technique, and his voice exploded in the black dog's mind. The big black dog's face was full of grievance as it hurriedly responded telepathically, "Master, I really didn't mean to harm you. It's just that you look so much like my old master that I thought we could bluff our way through." Oh, Fang Chen was greatly astonished and immediately pressed. "I look very much like your master." "More than alike, it's practically identical in spirit. Except for the eyes and cultivation level, you're practically carved from the same mold," the big black dog confirmed without hesitation. "I followed my old master for so many years, and even I almost mistook you that day." Fang Chen was amazed. Could there really be 2 people so similar in this world? He stroked his chin and asked again, how high was his cultivation? The big black dog replied, "It was unfathomably deep, even I don't know." Fang Chen narrowed his eyes and continued to press, "Are there many people who know the true extent of his cultivation?" The big black dog thought for a moment and answered, "The old master lived in seclusion and rarely showed himself. Apart from a few core members of the Southern Qian royal family, no outsiders knew." Upon hearing this, Fang Chen let out a slight sigh of relief. In that case, he could continue to steel himself and bluff as the Emperor of Southern Qian to the very end. With this identity, could Giant Sanquang still act so arrogantly? The big black dog saw through Fang Chen's thoughts and said with a bitter dog face, "But now this identity can't be kept hidden. I have no way to prove that you are the real Emperor of Southern Qian." The corner of Fang Chen's mouth curled up slightly, and he declared firmly in his mind, "I will prove it to myself." Huh? The big black dog was stunned. Fang Chen could prove himself. That couldn't be right. Fang Chen immediately deactivated the silent Zen technique, abruptly straightened his back, and surveyed the assembled sages of the dust-free realm with an imposing air that was majestic without overt anger. His gaze paused briefly on that middle-aged female demon sovereign, and finally, without flinching, he met the inquisitive, beautiful eyes of Great Sage Kingling. "What audacity, you dare to suspect us?" That middle-aged female demon venerable sneered coldly, the curve of her lips full of sarcasm. "Stop pretending." The moment I saw you, I suspected you were not His Majesty of Southern Qian. When Senior Zhan Tian stepped forward, I was completely certain. Great Sage Qingling's voice remained gentle, but a trace of caution appeared in her expression. She spoke slowly. Your Majesty, this matter is of great importance. Could Your Majesty provide proof? If our dustless realm has offended you, we will accept any punishment Your Majesty deems fit. These words sounded polite, but the implication was ice cold. If it truly was an offense, then do not blame the dustless realm for its ruthless methods. The sages of the dustless realm looked at Fang Chen with growing suspicion. Speaking of which, only the big black dog had proven its identity, yet this so-called Southern Qian emperor had never, from start to finish, displayed any special qualities befitting an emperor. Surely they couldn't expect all realms of the myriad heavens to recognize anyone the big black dog carries as the emperor, could they? Fang Chen clasped his hands behind his back, his gaze sweeping arrogantly over everyone, his voice as cold and hard as iron. You dare suspect us. We will make you pay the price. He then looked up toward the sky beyond, his gaze seeming to pierce the world boundary and land squarely on that figure. Let that madwoman who ambushed us come in. We shall confront you face to face. Hearing this, the middle-aged female demon venerable felt her heart skip a beat, as if a cold hand had suddenly clutched her heart. It sounded as if Fang Chen was completely confident, not at all afraid of a confrontation. Could he really be the Southern Qian Emperor? No, absolutely impossible. How could this scoundrel be the Southern Qian Emperor? Even if he turned to ashes, she would recognize him. Great Sage Qingling nodded gently, uttering a single word, fine. She slowly closed her eyes and telepathically communicated with the saints of the dustless realm. After a moment, she smiled and cupped her hands toward Zhan Tian beyond the sky. Fellow Taoist Giant, the saints permit you to enter the dustless realm. However, you may not take action. Through the transparent world boundary, Zhan Tian had already heard the situation below clearly. She couldn't help but laugh in anger, her laughter seeming to carry sharp sword Kai. This dog dares to still pretend to be the Southern Qian Emperor. He's courting death. Then I'll expose him in public. Even if the real Emperor came, he couldn't save him. As soon as she finished speaking, she let out a low shout, retract. The massive sword wings on both sides, formed by countless sword edges, instantly surged back into their sheaths like a swarm of bees returning to the hive. The third seal on her forehead took shape once more and slowly faded away, while the faint red hue in her eyes quickly receded like the tide. Her entire demeanor lost some of its killing intent and coldness, and a captivating radiance returned to her eyes, making her look bright and alluring. With a blur of motion, she crossed the world boundary and silently descended upon the land of the dustless realm. Though her aura was restrained, it still brought an overwhelming pressure that felt suffocating. The sages of the dustless realm all stood reverently behind Great Sage Qingling and saluted respectfully. Greetings, Senior Zhan. Zhan Tian casually swept her gaze over them, her eyes finally resting on Great Sage Qingling as she said meaningfully, I have long heard that the dustless realm has a female Great Sage of peerless grace, and now I finally meet her. Great Sage Qingling smiled, her words tinged with modesty. Senior Zhan flatters this junior. When you were fighting your way in and out of the divine capital, this junior had not yet entered the Three Calamities realm. Zhan Tian gave her a deep look, then glared at Fang Chen and snorted coldly. You are quite lucky to have stumbled into the dustless realm. But your audacity is too great, daring to impersonate the Southern Qian Emperor. Truly, you do not know how death is written. The big black dog bared its teeth and retorted defiantly, Stinky woman, how dare you speak to our master like that? Zhan Tian shot it a sidelong glance, as if smelling something unbearable, fanning the air in front of her nose and saying disgustedly, Don't speak to me, you foul-mouthed dog. The big black dog bared its coldly gleaming fangs. What's wrong with dung? Did it offend you? Zhan Tian ignored it, her phoenix eyes suddenly glaring at Fang Chen as she shouted, Come with me into the void, don't destroy their world. Fang Chen clasped his hands behind his back, his expression as indifferent as 10,000. Old ice, his voice eerily calm, are you speaking to us?
Yes.
Zhan Tian laughed in anger. Even at this point, Fang Chen still wanted to pretend. She looked at Great Sage Qingling and declared loudly, This man is Fang Chen, the champion marquis of the Central Earth.
What?
Upon these words, the whole crowd was shocked. Great Sage Qingling looked at Fang Chen again in astonishment, her tone full of disbelief. You are that champion Marquis Fang Chen who issued the proclamation to all heavens. The sages of the dustless realm behind her were even more shocked and doubtful, all looking curiously at Fang Chen and whispering among themselves. He's so young. I thought he was an elderly sage who dominated a realm, but it turns out he's a youth. If the geniuses of all heavens knew, they probably wouldn't be able to sit still. A person's name is like a tree's shadow. The impact of that proclamation to all heavens back then was truly profound. That edict reached every corner of all heavens. However, those who truly understood Fang Chen were few and far between. Great Sage Qingling slightly furrowed her elegant brows and asked further, "Senior Jian, are you certain he is the champion Marquis?" Jian Sanquang put her hands behind her back, her pretty face cold, and said in a low voice, "I observed him for several days, saw with my own eyes him receiving the bestowal of ancient Saint Divine steel in the Central Earth, and personally witnessed him mingling with the Central Earth's sages and divinity transformation cultivators. If he's not the champion Marquis, then who could he be?" Hearing this, the sages of the Dustless Realm all changed expression and turned their gazes to Great Sage Qingling. Even if Fang Chen was not the Southern Qian Emperor, he was still the champion Marquis, personally enfeoffed by the Great Qian Divine Kingdom. The heavy karma connected to him was something their Dustless Realm would do best not to lightly involve themselves with. Great Sage Qingling's beautiful eyes flickered slightly as she looked at Fang Chen and asked slowly, "Sir, what have you to say?" Fang Chen remained calm and composed, his voice indifferent as if speaking of a trivial matter unrelated to him. "Unexpectedly, when we travel through the all heavens, we still have to prove our identity. This day's matter, our Southern Qian shall bear in mind. How do you want us to prove our identity?" Jian Sanquang curled her lips into a mocking sneer and said word by word, "You won't shed tears until you see the coffin. I once came into contact with a member of the Southern Qian Imperial clan. They carried an identity jade token bearing the seal imprint of Southern Qian's Imperial Jade Seal. Although that seal was a replica, it was still unique among the myriad realms and worlds, impossible for outsiders to imitate." As she spoke, she narrowed her eyes, a teasing smile in them like a hunter who saw her prey fall into a trap. "This Southern Qian Emperor, could you perhaps show your Imperial clan jade token?" The big black dog broke out in a cold sweat on its back, thinking to itself, "It's over." This woman had truly been in contact with members of the Great Qian Imperial clan. Where could Fang Chen possibly get an Imperial clan jade token? That thing couldn't be forged, even if you tried. Fang Chen clasped his hands behind his back and said calmly, "We are the sovereign of Southern Qian. Our name is everything. Why should we need to show a jade token?" He said these words with no trace of smoke or fire, but before Jian Sanquang's cold laugh could sound, he immediately added, "I do not have a jade token. But the Imperial Jade Seal I do carry with me." Rumble. Everyone felt as if thunder rumbled through the heavens, their souls trembling violently, as if about to be shaken out of their bodies. Great Sage Qingling's pupils constricted sharply, an expression of disbelief appearing in her eyes. The Imperial Jade Seal. Her shock was not unwarranted. The Imperial Jade Seal represented supreme authority over the Southern Qian world, the ultimate treasure of Southern Qian, and by all logic, it could never be taken out of the Southern Qian realm. Jian Sanquang frowned deeply, her voice full of doubt. "Are you joking? Even a replica of Southern Qian's Imperial Jade Seal is the foremost treasure symbolizing Southern Qian. Even if you were the true emperor, you couldn't possibly bring it out." The big black dog was drenched in cold sweat on the back of its head, inwardly clicking its tongue in amazement. Good heavens, I, claiming Fang Chen was the Southern Qian emperor, already had the audacity of a thieving dog. I never expected there would be an even greater expert. How dare he make up something like this? Fang Chen exuded dignified authority without anger, his voice resounding like a great bell. "Today, we shall open your eyes, bring us a silk scroll." Great Sage Qingling took out a blank silk scroll made of high-grade material, a scroll capable of withstanding a strike from a sage-level expert without being damaged. "Champion, your majesty, here is the silk scroll." She was somewhat intimidated by Fang Chen's imposing aura, but deep down, she still couldn't believe it. Fang Chen made a grasping motion through the air, and the blank silk scroll was drawn into a spatial storage artifact, then under his control, materialized in midair above the purple crystal mine. He indeed did not possess the Southern Qian's forged Imperial Jade Seal, but he had the seal box of the genuine Imperial Jade Seal. Wouldn't the carved characters of the Imperial Jade Seal left inside be far more convincing than those from the Southern Qian's fake seal? With a thought, the blank silk scroll descended steadily onto that great seal. 8 mysterious characters that defied direct gaze were instantly imprinted onto the silk scroll. Even as an imprint, the silk scroll still radiated a vast divine might capable of crushing a world. Faintly, This divine might was actually of the same lineage as that from the imperial edict earlier. With this seal here, who dares say it is false? Jian Sanquang crossed her arms before her chest, pressing against her ample bosom, and said coldly, the imperial jade seal. If you truly possess it, I will take responsibility for my mistake and will not implicate the martial repository. If not, even if I spare you, the Southern Qian will not. Before her words faded, that same silk scroll flew out from Fang Chen's spatial storage artifact again, slowly hovering above everyone's heads. On it, 8 blurred large characters emitted a mysterious pressure that could crush a world. The color drained from the sages' faces in an instant. It really is the imprint of the Imperial Jade Seal. No mistake, this unique divine might belongs only to the Imperial Jade Seal. There is no second one across all heavens and myriad worlds. One sage, voice trembling, stammered in shock. He can stamp the seal right on a blank silk scroll. Doesn't that mean? The sages who had just been questioning Fang Chen instantly changed their expressions drastically, bowing in salute, one after another. In fear and trepidation, they shouted in unison, "We pay our respects to your majesty." Every face was filled with reverence, terrified that Fang Chen would hold them accountable for their offense. Great Sage Kingling's almond eyes widened even more. Where was even a trace of doubt in her eyes? She respectfully performed a curtsy, her crisp voice carrying a tremble. "The Dustless Realm has offended your majesty. Please punish us." The big black dog widened its 3 large dog eyes, hardly able to believe its own eyes. Its heart trembled violently. A thought exploded. How is this possible? He actually has the Imperial Jade Seal. Am I crazy, or has the world gone mad? Why does this imprint of the Imperial Jade Seal seem to possess even more Dao resonance than the Southern Qian's imitation? Just as it was stunned, its dogleg was kicked imperceptibly by Fang Chen. The big black dog snapped awake with a start, quickly suppressed the towering waves in its heart, raised its neck high, and fiercely played along. "You blind fools, you actually led to suspect my master. Does the Dustless Realm still want to exist in this world?" Great Sage Kingling pursed her red lips slightly, a trace of genuine panic surfacing in her eyes, and she said softly, "Your Majesty, this concubine is willing to bear all punishment alone." Fang Chen cast a sidelong glance at her and said indifferently, "Your crimes will be dealt with later." After saying that, his gaze became firmly locked onto Jian Sanquang. At this moment, Jian Sanquang's expression was completely frozen. Her hands that had been supporting her chest were unknowingly lowered, her eyes fixed dead on the Imperial Jade Seal. Al's carved text on the silk scroll filled with utter disbelief. When she noticed Fang Chen's gaze shooting toward her, her heart couldn't help but sink. A feeling of impending catastrophe instantly surged into her heart. What had she done? She had actually hunted down and tried to kill the Southern Qian's emperor. Is this going to provoke a war between 2 great worlds? She further recalled the intelligence she had received earlier. The Southern Qian was recruiting soldiers and buying horses, preparing to launch a grand war to unify all heavens and myriad worlds. The Southern Qian of the present was just lacking a proper justification for war, and she herself had just personally delivered the most legitimate excuse. At that thought, her heartbeat quickened slightly, and a trace of cold sweat quietly seeped from her forehead. Feeling Fang Chen's increasingly gloomy gaze, Jian Sanquang bit her red lips slightly, finally slowly bowed down, and cupped her hands solemnly. "Jian Sanquang greets your majesty." "The Southern Qian Emperor." Fang Chen stared at her coldly and questioned word by word in a deep voice. "I concealed my identity to assist the Central Earth in fulfilling the mission of liberating the Dark World. RLD, yet unexpectedly I was pursued by you all the way. What does your martial repository intend? To rebel?" "Concealing his identity." Think about that great Qian divine kingdom, which had fallen for 10,000 years, suddenly rewarding the champion marquis with great fanfare. And think about how the Dark World, which no one among the 4 great realms of the heavens could liberate, was actually successfully liberated by an inconspicuous Central Earth. All kinds of perplexing doubts, when placed upon the Southern Qian Emperor's person, become entirely reasonable. Great Sage Kingling and the many sages of the Dustless Realm all showed expressions of sudden realization on their faces. Jian Sanquang still felt that some details were off, but with the Imperial Jade Seal right before her, Fang Chen's identity could no longer be doubted. She secretly brooded in her heart, "Damn brat, you're a perfectly good emperor, why play at concealing your identity? If I had known you were the Southern Qian Emperor earlier, I would never have set my sights on you. Now it's done, prepare to face the wrath of the Southern Qian Emperor." She hurriedly composed herself and bowed deeply with full apology. "I did not know your majesty was present. Please forgive me." Fang Chen sneered inwardly. "Damn woman, you captured me alive earlier. You hunted me down. Now the roles of attacker and defender have swapped." Wearing a cold expression, he said icily, "You hunted me down, and one forgive me is enough. Is the sovereign of my Southern Qian so cheap in your eyes?" Jian Sanquang felt bitter in her heart, and her tone became even more sincere. "Your majesty, please punish me. For today's mistake, I am willing to bear full responsibility." Fang Chen recalled his humiliating capture alive by her overbearing strength, and the frustration of fleeing in panic while being hunted. His heart was filled with pent-up rage. He wished he could fiercely whip her, then splash her all over with filth, watching her stamp her feet in anger. But now that he had the burden of being the Southern Qian emperor, he had to keep up appearances. He gave a cold snort, his gaze darkening. "HMPH, how much longer do you plan to keep my belongings?" Jian Sanquang suddenly realized, hurriedly took out 2 void feather garments, and respectfully presented them with both hands, returning the void feather garments to your majesty. Fang Chen accepted them with a sullen face and discreetly gave the big black dog a meaningful glance. The big black dog rolled its eyes and immediately understood. Fang Chen wanted to extort her, but as an emperor, it wasn't proper for him to voice it himself, so he had to let the dog convey his meaning. And the big black dog was more than happy to do this kind of thing. It immediately started bawling out loudly. "His Majesty cherishes life and is unwilling to provoke a war between 2 worlds because of you alone. He can spare your life. But you must give our emperor a proper explanation to silence the gossip of the Southern Qian ministers." Upon hearing this, Jian Sanquang felt as if she had been granted a great amnesty. She knew this was only fair. Publicly hunting down the Southern Qian emperor, even if the emperor himself was magnanimous, it concerned the honor and shame of the Southern Qian. How could those powerhouses of he Southern Qian let it go easily? Therefore, she had to give the Southern Qian a presentable explanation to quell the anger of its experts. She secretly gritted her teeth, looked at the big black dog, and asked in a humble manner, "May I ask your excellency, what advice do you have?" The big black dog stood up on its hind legs, its dog eyes rolled over Jian Sanquang's figure, and finally fixed its stare on the sword sheath on her back. It spoke in an affected tone. "I suggest you present that sword sheath as a token of apology to our emperor. Only then can you turn hostility into friendship."
"What?"
Jian Sanquang was greatly shocked. The 90+ top grade spirit swords in the sword case weren't all her personal property. Many of them were important artifacts stored by the martial repository. Before descending the mountain, she felt this journey was exceptionally dangerous, so she specifically requested these 90 spirit swords from the master of the martial repository for protection. If she lost 1 or 2, she might barely be able to report back. But if she lost them all, how could she possibly get off lightly? Seeing her hesitant expression, the big black dog snorted coldly. "You're still hesitating when given a chance. What do you take our emperor's magnanimity for?" Jian Sanquang's face changed slightly, although she clearly saw that this man and dog were playing good cop, bad cop. But who was to blame when she had committed a major fault first? Losing over 90 top-grade spirit swords was indeed a grave loss, hard for the martial repository to bear, but weighing the two, it was better than provoking a war between 2 worlds, right? Thinking of this, she gritted her teeth slightly, reached back and pulled out the sword sheath, and raised it high with both hands, saying in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, I offer his sword to thank your Majesty for your magnanimity." Fang Chen's heart pounded madly. This scabbard actually contains over 90 supreme-grade spirit swords. Now they are all mine. That damn dog is truly black-hearted to the bone. Originally, Fang Chen only thought to ask for a few more supreme-grade spirit swords, so that if he encountered an even more formidable sword array in the future, he wouldn't have to frantically search for spirit swords everywhere. He never imagined that the moment the big black dog opened its mouth, it would bite off over 90 for him in one breath. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, he grabbed the scabbard steadily through the air. Just as he was about to nod and pardon Jian Sanquang, the big black dog hastily interrupted him. It had been bullied so miserably by Jian Sanquang. Now that it had the chance, how could it let her off easily? Its eyes rolled, and it added with a strange, mocking tone, "Furthermore, you must serve as my master's personal handmaid for a while. All the myriad realms of the heavens must know that you have submitted beneath my master. Only then can you completely quell the fury of the powerhouses of Nanqian." A personal handmaid. Jian Sanquang was stunned on the spot. She couldn't recall how many 100 years it had been since she had heard this lowly status that only existed among mortals. Now this dead dog actually wanted her to be a personal handmaid. Seeing her dumbfounded, the big black dog even snorted deliberately. "Don't worry, it won't be too hard for you. You just serve my master some tea, massage his shoulders and warm his bed. No need to be afraid, oh." Wait a moment. Had this dead dog slyly slipped something outrageous into those tasks? Annoyed, Jian Sangquang glared fiercely at the big black dog. This dead dog was definitely seizing the opportunity to take revenge on her. Fang Chen directly rolled his eyes at the big black dog. What kind of rotten idea was this? Making a mighty expert of the three calamities realm warm his bed. Even if Jian Sangquang truly dared to warm it, he wouldn't have the guts to sleep in it. Such a dangerous figure. It was best to send her away as soon as possible. The longer she stayed by his side, the greater the threat with each passing day. He gently weighed the scabbard in his hand and declared loudly, "Since you sincerely repent, we shall forgive your past misdeeds. Today's matter is wiped clean. From now on, do not appear before us again." Hearing this, Jian Sangquang felt as if she had been granted a great amnesty. As expected, everything was the big black dog's sinister plot. Those 90 odd spirit swords of hers must also be this treacherous dog's cunning scheme. The Nankian emperor is still wise and just. It's only that treacherous scoundrel by his side who is evil. She glared venomously at the big black dog, then turned to Fang Chen and cupped her hands in solemn thanks. "Many thanks for your majesty's pardon. I take my leave." As her words fell, she resolutely transformed into a streak of ethereal shadow that shot skyward and instantly fled from the dustless realm. Fang Chen secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The great hidden danger in his heart had finally been completely resolved. At that moment, he suddenly felt something tugging at his trouser leg. Looking down, he saw the big black dog holding the hem of his clothes in its mouth, its 3 dog eyes staring unblinkingly at the scabbard in his hand, its 2 front paws rubbing together excitedly without stop. The meaning was all too clear. Obtaining this scabbard was due to its great contribution, so it should get a share, shouldn't it? Fang Chen composedly lifted his foot and gave it a light kick, secretly activating the sealed mouth Zen. The big black dog immediately understood and transmitted a wicked laugh through the sealed mouth Zen. "Master, this fragrant and obedient one would be absolutely top tier as a chambermaid." A vein on Fang Chen's forehead throbbed violently, and he scolded in a lowered voice, "You've learned yet another trick for courting death." If it wasn't having a 3 calamities expert warm the bed, it was making a 3 calamities realm expert a chambermaid. This big black dog was probably hoping he'd die early so it could inherit his legacy. The great sage Kingling pursed her red lips slightly and said uneasily in a low voice, "Your Majesty, this concubine doubted your Majesty's true dragon body and is willing to accept any punishment from your Majesty." Fang Chen gazed expressionlessly at the great sage Kingling and said blandly, "Man is no sage who can be without fault. Let this be the last time." A look of gratitude immediately appeared on the great sage Kingling's face, and she hurriedly said, "Your Majesty is magnanimous. This concubine is endlessly grateful." She shifted her tone and continued, "However, this concubine said earlier that if your Majesty is the ruler of Nankian, this concubine would naturally bear the fault." As she spoke, she flipped her hand and took out a brand, new jade talisman. Taking a deep breath, she drew out 90% of the law force from her body and poured it all into the talisman. This jade talisman contains a strike of 90% of this concubine's power. Below the 3 calamities realm, certain death is inevitable. Even if a 3 calamities realm expert came personally, they would have to be somewhat wary. Now, as compensation, I present it to your Majesty. Fang Chen couldn't help but be overjoyed. He had been worrying about lacking a heavy treasure to attack enemies. Although he had a primordial seed in hand, its usage requirements were too stringent. Without a powerful expert's cooperation, trying to plant it on a 3 calamities realm cultivator was nearly impossible. He cleared his throat lightly and demurred, "We travel through the myriad heavens, and none dare do anything to us. What need have we for protective items?" After saying this, he quickly changed tack and added, "However, if we do not accept, you will surely feel uneasy." "Very well, we shall reluctantly accept it." With a sweep of his large sleeve, the jade talisman fell into Fang Chen's hand and was casually placed into his spatial storage device. Having obtained 2 heavy treasures in succession, Fang Chen felt utterly refreshed and delighted. As the saying goes, misfortune is where fortune relies. Being chased by Jian Sangquang like that, looking back now, was perhaps not entirely a bad thing. The great sage Kingling then breathed a small sigh of relief and invited with a smile, "Your Majesty, please come into the palace to sit for a while. Allow this concubine to properly entertain you." Fang Chen considered briefly. Since the crisis was resolved, there was no need to linger in this dustless realm any longer. The Grand Libationer's fate was still unknown. He truly had no time to waste. Fang Chen politely declined. We are no longer in the mood to tour the myriad heavens. We shall visit the dustless realm another day. As his words fell, he crisply uttered 2 words, farewell. The big black dog, very perceptive, abruptly bit open the world barrier with its mouth. Fang Chen casually draped the void, feather cloak over himself, and stepped toward that pitch black rift. Behind him, the great sage Qingling and the group of sages of the dustless realm all had helpless expressions on their faces. After all, they had spoiled the mood of this Nanqian emperor. Originally, they could have discussed the matter of migrating to Nanqian in person and asked for more benefits. Unfortunately, this incident just had to happen. The great sage Qingling could only cup her hands and say, "We respectfully see your majesty off." Fang Chen nodded his chin without turning back, one foot already stepping into the void. But just at that moment, as if remembering something, he slowly turned back and looked at one among the many sages of the dustless realm. It was precisely that newly promoted female fiend lord, plain in appearance and exuding demonic aura from all over. Fang Chen narrowed his gaze and stared at her, asking, "Have you seen us before?" It was this woman who earlier had categorically testified that he wasn't the Nanqian emperor. If she had never met him and had no interaction before, how could she be so certain? The middle-aged female fiend lord immediately showed a panicked expression and quickly covered up, I once saw Fang Chen of the Central Plains. She hurriedly lowered her head and continued, I did not know that was your majesty. I beg your majesty to punish me. This woman had actually seen him before. But why did he have absolutely no impression of it? Fang Chen glanced at the great sage Qingling nearby and said blandly, "The ignorant are without guilt, forget it." Then he once again uttered those 2 words, farewell. Having said that, he turned and stepped completely into the void. Although he vaguely felt something was off about this woman, he couldn't very well dispose of her in front of the great sage Qingling without reason, could he? After the big black dog also left and the world barrier closed again, the middle-aged female fiend lord's whole body went limp and she collapsed to the ground. Cold sweat broke out on her forehead as she gnashed her teeth and thought, this is truly unjust. That detestable fellow is actually the Nanqian emperor. Fang Chen of the Central Plains, the champion marquis of the myriad heavens and 100 realms, is actually a projection of the Nanqian emperor. Who would believe it if I told them? The great sage Qingling's face had already returned to calm. Her smooth jade, like feet, trod the sky as she slowly walked toward the traveling palace. Without turning her head, she blandly retorted, "Do you actually believe he is the Nanqian emperor?" The middle-aged female fiend lord was stunned, then greatly alarmed. He's a fake, but he clearly possesses the imperial jade seal. The great sage Qingling said calmly, "What he imprinted is the genuine jade seal stamp of the great Qian divine kingdom, not that counterfeit of Nanqian." It turned out that not only the big black dog, but the great sage Qingling had also noticed that the seal on the silk cloth carried a unique Tao rhythm different from Nanqian's imitation jade seal. The middle-aged female fiend lord and the assembly of sages were all dumbfounded. That man was actually a fake. Regaining her senses, the middle-aged female fiend lord asked angrily, "Then why didn't you expose him on the spot?" The great sage Qingling asked coolly, "Is there any benefit?" That single question literally stumped her on the spot. Having a fake His Majesty the Southern Qian Emperor die in the Dustless Realm indeed offered them not one shred of advantage. The middle-aged demon matriarch still muttered in displeasure. Even so, there was no need to give him such a precious paramount treasure. "You've exhausted 90% of your law energy. I fear you'll need to go into closed door cultivation for a long time to recover." The great sage Qingling's lips curved faintly. Although he was not His Majesty, the Southern Qian Emperor, the fact that he could duplicate the stamp of the Imperial Heirloom Seal shows his destiny is extraordinary. She paused, then added, "Coupled with his uncanny resemblance to His Majesty, forging a bond of good karma now might yield unexpected returns in the future." The middle-aged demon matriarch's mouth jutted up high. "That scoundrel is getting off way too easy. Back then he treated me in such a way, and now that he's about to fall into my hands, not only doesn't he suffer the slightest grievance, he's reaped every benefit instead." The more she thought about it, the angrier she grew, and she spat through clenched teeth. This is absolutely outrageous. For some reason, this newly ascended demon matriarch held nowhere near the same awe for the great sage Qingling as the other sages did. The great sage Qingling exhorted with a smile, you would do well to let go of past grievances and get along with him. The him of today is no longer that minor martial cultivator you encountered in the Central Plains. The middle-aged demon matriarch, thoroughly unconvinced, gave a cold snort. I've already entered the sage realm, while he is merely at the divine transformation stage. Do I really need to curry favor with him? She ground her teeth and declared viciously, in any case, he'd best not fall into my clutches. Otherwise, I will have my revenge for that day. At this very moment, in another part of the void, Giant Sanquang sat cross-legged atop a sword shadow, massaging her head and sighing miserably. Ah, why am I so unlucky? Who could have guessed that Fang Chen of the Central Plains was His Majesty, the Southern Qian Emperor in disguise? Not only did I get splattered all over with filth, I also lost over 90 top-grade spirit swords. How am I supposed to explain this back home? Just then, a sword shadow sliced across the void, streaking to a halt before her. Her brows arched faintly as she murmured to herself, "A void transmission from those 6 old fellows." She flicked her index finger and the sword shadow shattered in response, projecting a stream of information from within. "We have arrived within Southern Qian territory. To ensure our safety, we still need Third Sister's sword wings to preserve our lives. Third Sister, do not delay, unduly make haste to rendezvous with us." Upon reading this far, Giant Sanquang felt as if her head were swelling to twice its size. The sword wings were already gone. However, the transmission did not end there. Furthermore, word of His Majesty, the Southern Qian Emperor, has surfaced. He abruptly appeared in the divine capital and engaged several old monsters from the Great Qian Divine Kingdom era in a pitched battle, revealing a cultivation of fearsome magnitude. According to reports, he successfully fought his way out of the divine capital and seized a paramount treasure of the capital in the process. Barring any unforeseen events, he will soon return to Southern Qian. The time left to us is running short. Hearing this, Giant Sanquang abruptly straightened up, her jade-like countenance instantly flooded with shock and trembling. Old monsters from the Great Qian Divine Kingdom era. She recalled all of a sudden how, when she fled from the divine capital, an awoken old monster had glanced at her from afar. That very glance alone had cost her half her life. Even now, remembering it still sent chills racing through her heart. Yet His Majesty, the Southern Qian Emperor, whose true strength had never been revealed to outsiders, could actually clash simultaneously with several such old monsters. Not only that, he even managed to snatch a treasure and retreat unscathed. What terrifying power was this? But in the next instant, Giant Sanquang suddenly realized something, leaping up from the sword shadow as though jolted by lightning. Wait! If His Majesty, the Southern Qian Emperor, really was that formidable, how could I have chased him into such a sorry state? And furthermore, she hurriedly checked the date of the transmission. It was clearly from 3 days earlier. In other words, His Majesty, the Southern Qian Emperor's battle, in the divine capital, had happened at least 3 days ago. And that was precisely the time when Fang Chen was leading the Central Plains counterattack against the Southern Celestial Realm. Her heart jolted violently. It's impossible for him to be in 2 places at once. She slammed her right fist into her left palm with a crisp smack, her face flooding with sudden enlightenment as she cried out in shock. I knew something was off. So he was a fake, His Majesty, the Southern Qian Emperor. He. As she spoke, she broke into laughter, her slender shoulders, all too easy to encircle, quaking uncontrollably. The aura of the 3 calamities realm swept out wildly, beyond her control. Giant Sanquang's face was sheeted in frost as she abruptly screeched in fury, Fang Chen, you pelted me with filth and swindled my swords. You have pushed me past all endurance. Especially when she thought about how she had clearly cornered Fang Chen, just 1 step away from capturing him. And instead, she had been completely fooled by him. Not only had she apologized abjectly, she even offered over 90 top-grade spirit swords and nearly became his bed, warming handmaiden. At the memory, her fury made her entire body tremble, so violently that the surrounding void space began to shake. She cursed shrilly, scoundrel, and that dead dog, I'll tear you both to pieces. Her exquisitely clear eyes, stark in their black and white brilliance, surged with deranged intent as she glared viciously toward the forbidden land. Then, with a palm strike, she shattered the transmission projection and whirled to speed away. However, without the sword wings, her movement technique was nowhere near as swift as before. By contrast, Fang Chen, clad in the void feather garment, had been hurtling along like the wind and lightning. About 2 days later, covering what would normally have taken Big Black Dog half a month, Fang Chen, by pushing the void feather garment without regard for the cost, had astonished him. Glai reached his destination in such a short time. Fang Chen gazed at the scene before him with disbelief. Is this the place you meant? What greeted his eyes was a landscape of ruined halls, all aglow with radiant light and awnings of lamps stretching for 10,000 li. Amid the dark void, its presence was dazzling as a night shining pearl, exceptionally conspicuous. Within the vast, cross-celestial halls, row upon row of bookshelves could be dimly glimpsed. Some shelves were still intact, neatly filled with books of every hue, others lay broken and ruined. Could this place actually be a library? Big Black Dog's eyes held a complex expression as he gazed at the ruined structures ahead and spoke slowly. This is the scriptorium of the Great Qian Divine Kingdom. At its peak, it was as vast as a world unto itself, sealing within it all the knowledge between heaven and earth. A scriptorium. Fang Chen couldn't help but think of the armory realm. The armory must have been where the Great Qian Divine Kingdom stored its weapons. Correspondingly, the scriptorium would be the place where all manner of books were stored, and the civilization of the Great Qian Divine Kingdom was inherited. Logically, the scriptorium should be comparable in scale to the armory. The ruined halls before his eyes were likely just the tip of the iceberg. Fang Chen noticed that quite a few books on the shelves were still reasonably intact and felt a subtle tug at his heart. Any book surviving from the era of the Great Qian Divine Kingdom could be regarded as a priceless treasure in the present age. But he quickly realized the anomaly. Such a dazzling location had existed for 10,000 years, had no one else ever discovered it. If they had, why did the books still remain? Fang Chen's gaze flickered as he asked, "There's a catch inside, isn't there?" Big Black Dog's 3 eyes swiveled, and with a 9 truths, 1 false good answer, he replied, "Naturally. The scriptorium of the Great Qian Divine Kingdom was the cornerstone of the state. How could one simply barge in? Even though only a fractured corner remains now, terrifying restrictions still hold. Trespassers are all too easily suppressed and killed by the prohibitions. Even sages can be wounded there." Fang Chen pondered privately. The Chaos Ancient Blood Marquis possessed matchless ferocity. At present, the Grand Libationer's strength simply could not block him. The only solution was to borrow an outside power. This corner of the Great Qian Divine Kingdom's scriptorium before him was a decent choice. But what method had the Grand Libationer actually employed to forcibly teleport the Chaos Ancient Blood Marquis all the way from the distant central plains into the scriptorium? The Chaos Ancient Blood Marquis certainly couldn't have been stupid enough to let the Grand Libationer lure him here step by step, could he? Or was it that Big Black Dog was deceiving him? Just as these doubts swirled within him, an enormous phantom of a Taoist suddenly flickered into being deep within the halls. It was unmistakably a form condensed by 9 Grand Libationers joining forces. Immediately afterward, a sky encompassing bloodlight swept across the firmament. The two annihilated each other, vanishing simultaneously, leaving behind only empty reverberating shockwaves that surged and radiated through the halls, blasting bookshelves flying, countless volumes scattering and tumbling into chaos. The Grand Libationer was truly inside. Joy leaped in Fang Chen's heart. Although both the Grand Libationers and the Chaos Ancient Blood Marquis estates seemed strange, at least they were still alive. Fang Chen took out a top-grade spirit sword and with some heartache tossed it to Big Black Dog as he praised, "Well done, Big Black Dog, here's your reward." Big Black Dog bared his teeth in a grin, secretly grumbling to himself, "I helped him get over 90 swords and he only gives me one. What a black-hearted master." Who would have thought? Fang Chen added one more sentence, "I'll lend it to you for a month. If there's any damage, you'll compensate at full price." Damn it, it's still just a loan. It ground its dog teeth, seething inwardly, "You dead thing, just you wait. Once we enter this library, our master-servant relationship is over. Then just wait for your dog lord's furious storm like vengeance." The Big Black Dog feigned gratitude, cradling it with both paws, and said, "Thank you, master. You are truly generous." Fang Chen ignored its biting sarcasm and gazed at the hall before him, his expression exceedingly solemn. The previous ruin of the Dacian Divine Kingdom, the Sumeru Divine Prison, had nearly cost him his life. Now that he had encountered another Dacian Divine Kingdom library, how could he not take every precaution? He immediately raised his hand and summoned 6 formation stones into the air. Whether or not the Grand Formation, the Big Black Dog spoke of truly existed, having an extra trick up his sleeve could never be wrong. However, those formation stones had endured several attacks and were beyond damaged. All 6 were riddled with dense cracks, on the verge of shattering, utterly incapable of breaching any formation. Thinking of this, he summoned the artifact spirit of the immortal king's indestructible bell, and cut straight to the point. "Little spirit, can you spare some time to help me reply? Are these 6 formation stones?" The little artifact spirit replied huffily, "Don't disturb me while I'm repairing my original vessel." Fang Chen's gaze flickered. Then, "What if I count it as you acting one more time?" The little spirit instantly cheered with excitement. What? There's such a good deal. Leave it to me. They're just a few top-grade artifacts. I can repair them in a single day." "1 day?" Fang Chen thought briefly, then nodded. "Fine, I'll wait 1 day." Coincidentally, he also needed some time to make preparations for entering the library. First and foremost was naturally that scabbard which contained over 90 swords. With so many top-grade spirit swords, if he could mobilize them all at once, simply hurling them at someone could bludgeon even existences below the sage realm to death. If he could manipulate them into forming a sword array, its power would be unimaginable. He recalled the awe-inspiring sight of Giant Sanquang simultaneously wielding all his top-grade spirit swords into wings of blades, and couldn't help a surge of envy. The martial repository truly had its own unique merits in the way of the sword. If only he could borrow some of their sword-controlling techniques. Perhaps he could build upon the grand derivation sword array and comprehend an even more profound sword path. Suddenly, Fang Chen looked at the books scattered everywhere in the hall, a glimmer of hope igniting in his eyes. Within this library were there books on the way of the sword. His eyes flickered, and he put away the scabbard. He then retrieved the ice crystal pendant he had fished from Bing Xin, a thoughtful look on his face. When entering the library, if he should run into the blood marquee of ancient chaos, it would be a brush with death. Although the character blood on my forehead has been temporarily sealed by Kiki, so the blood marquee of ancient chaos cannot sense it, but if we meet face to face, how could he possibly not recognize me? Bing Xin's ice crystal pendant had come at the perfect time. The big black dog's all-capable sense of smell had actually been successfully blocked by this pendant. Its disguising ability might just deceive the blood marquee of ancient chaos. Fang Chen promptly hung it around his neck, to be activated once he entered the library. After that, he also prepared the jade talisman gifted by the pure spirit great sage and the stasis seed, one by one, ensuring they could be instantly activated in a moment of crisis. Finally, he sat cross-legged, laid the sword of time across his knees, and the flow of time around him instantly accelerated threefold. He took out a strand of law force and continued cultivating the scripture of departing heaven and cleansing calamities. Under the threefold time acceleration, it was just enough for him to refine one more strand of law force. Time passed in a flash. A day later, the artifact spirit of the immortal king's indestructible bell suddenly cheered and spat out 6 formation stones from within the snow-white bell. Those originally ruined formation stones had defied heaven and been restored to perfect condition. Even their spiritual pressure was stronger than when he had first obtained them. The little spirit let out a slight breath and said, "All right, task complete. I only owe you one more action. Once that's done, I'll be off to find my own master." Fang Chen slowly opened his eyes and said calmly, "Of course. If you cannot find him, I'll even help you look." Hearing this, the little spirit replied with heartfelt gratitude, You really are a good man. Then I'll go repair the immortal king's indestructible bell early." Before its words even faded, it dove headfirst back into the damaged bell, toiling diligently to continue the repairs. Seeing this, Fang Chen couldn't help but show a gratified expression. Watching the workhorse labor so diligently, he was completely at ease. Just then, a gust of cold wind blew into the great hall from somewhere, and Fang Chen suddenly felt a chill all over. He looked down and realized he was already drenched in sweat, his clothes completely soaked, and his bare skin flushed with the redness of tempering. That wave of bone, deep, intense pain, was slowly fading away. The second strand of law force had been successfully tempered into his body. Fang Chen suddenly clenched his 5 fingers, and a terrifying explosion of air, like mountains collapsing and the earth splitting, erupted from his palm, shaking the void 3zh around him with a faint tremor. Such physical might had already surpassed the physique of the 5 declines of heaven and man, infinitely approaching the level of the sage realm. It must be noted that he had only undergone body tempering with law force 3 times in total. If he tempered his body with all 10 strands of law force, perhaps he could truly shatter the shackles of the spirit transformation realm in one fell swoop and step directly into the sage realm. It seemed the records within the scripture of departing heaven and cleansing calamities were not all mere conjectures of the Buddha. A flicker of undisguised hope flashed rapidly through his eyes. Given enough time, this physical constitution would sooner or later truly reach the Sage Realm. But now that all preparations were complete, it was time to enter the library and explore its secrets. He reached out and grasped the ice crystal pendant on his chest, slowly activating it. A layer of biting cold immediately emanated from the pendant. The cold energy circulated throughout his body, swiftly forming a layer of ice that covered his skin. This layer of ice continuously shifted its form, meaning it could, at Fang Chen's will, transform into any appearance. Without any hesitation, Fang Chen's mind commanded it abruptly. The next second, the figure and silhouette of Wang Chengxi clearly manifested. At a time like this, if not his good brother, then who better to take the stage? He glanced at the big black dog sprawled to the side, kicked it with his leg, and urged, "Wake up, it's time to go. With your sense of smell, find our Central Plains Grand Libationer within this library." The big black dog scrambled to its feet, beat its chest until it thumped loudly, and boasted boldly, "Leave it to me." Saying so, it immediately stepped out on its 4 dog legs, crossing into the ruined hall in a single stride. Fang Chen followed closely, also stepping into the hall. Unexpectedly, the moment his right foot entered, an irresistible spatial fluctuation violently surged outward. Though he was only a step away from the big black dog, after entering, he instantly lost all trace of it. In his perception, the big black dog had instantly appeared millions of miles away. Fang Chen then understood that this ruined hall, which seemed only 10,000 miles across, actually contained a universe within. Its true vastness was utterly immeasurable. "That damned dog didn't warn me there were spatial fluctuations here." Fang Chen chuckled coldly and muttered to himself, "Looks like this treacherous cur is ready to turn on his master." He wore a thoughtful expression and took out the Hell Soul Bell, giving it a shake. But an unexpected sight appeared. The Hell Soul Bell gave absolutely no response. Fang Chen narrowed his eyes and murmured, "The realm artifact isn't responding." He immediately tried to retrieve the Sword of Time, but discovered that the threefold time power emanating from the blade had also vanished completely. Following that, he took out several other artifacts, all with the same result. All artifacts could produce no effect whatsoever in this place. Artifacts lose their power here. Fang Chen looked around cautiously with a surprised expression. Abruptly, on a bookshelf, he spotted a hanging notice plaque. The plaque read clearly, "Library grounds, dismount, disarm, silence." Seeing this, Fang Chen's face immediately showed sudden understanding. The meaning of the notice was very clear. All who enter the library are prohibited from bringing divine weapons inside. Perhaps because the library itself was damaged, the rules here had been weakened significantly, unable to forcibly confiscate entrance artifacts, only capable of prohibiting their use. Truly worthy of a Dacian divine kingdom relic, suppressing even realm artifacts, Fang Chen clicked his tongue in secret, his heart filled with astonishment. Thankfully, the stasis seed and the pure spirit great sage jade talisman were not artifacts and could be used freely. Also, the transforming effect already active from the ice crystal pendant on his chest remained unaffected. "Treacherous dog, I'll just wait for you to try and turn on your master." Fang Chen swept a cold glance around, then lifted his steps and headed deeper into the library. While passing a bookshelf that was still mostly intact, he unexpectedly discovered that what was placed on it were all kinds of cultivation techniques. His pupils couldn't help but constrict slightly as he approached for closer observation. Out of caution, he did not reach out to touch them, avoiding any unforeseen accidents. But just as he was preparing to examine them in detail, a pair of eyes with a bewitching, shimmering gaze suddenly looked his way. At the same time, a familiar voice drifted faintly by his ear. "You're quite cautious. The books here have long since cultivated into spirits. Touch even one, and you'll never leave again."